You're watching World Talks on TVP World. I'm Dahmen. Germany and Ukraine have sealed a deal on drone production that Volodymyr Zelensky says could become one of the largest of its kind in Europe. President Zelensky has spent the day in Berlin meeting with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz and beefing up ties with the continent's largest provider of military aid to Kyiv. For more, I'm joined now by Iryna Krasnoshtan, Programme Director at the International Centre for Ukrainian Victory. Good evening to you, ma'am.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
A pleasure to have you. This looks like a mega deal. We're hearing 4 billion euros in defence cooperation. What does this mean for Ukraine at a time where obviously without the EU loan deal being rubber stamped, money is running out?
Well, there are several points I would like to make about this. First of all, this is actually a much bigger deal than defense only. So Ukraine and Germany have upgraded their partnership, bilateral partnership, to the strategic level. And this goes beyond defense to include economic, recovery, human dimension aspects, so a lot of things. And even on defense side, it's also, it's not just about the drones. There were contracts signed regarding the deliveries of additional Patriot missiles for Ukraine, something very important for us for the air defense, then additional Iryna launchers, and of course drones for mid and long range strikes. So as you mentioned, huge deal. And of course this is happening. I mean, Germany has been the biggest provider for military aid to Ukraine after the change in US policy, because in the past the US has been the biggest provider. So now Germany is taking the biggest role. We have a lot of cooperation happening already between Ukrainian and German defense industries. During this visit, there were already some types of missiles and drones presented as part of this cooperation. So things are moving forward. Germany is indeed a big partner, and we expect a lot from this. But there is some positive signs, if I can say, on the 90 billion deal loan with the EU as well after the Hungarian election. Maybe we can talk later, but of course, this comes in a crucial time because we are talking about long-term commitments. We see that there is no willingness from Russian side to stop the war, so Ukraine needs to ensure long-term support, and this is one of these big deals for that.
And we will definitely talk about the Hungarian election in just a moment and what it means for Ukraine. Are we seeing, when it comes to this deal in Germany, are we seeing President Zelensky taking the initiative, especially in the face of the Middle East war? I mean, he's already whipped across the Gulf and struck military partnerships there, now Europe and Germany. Is he trying to ensure that Kyiv is not left in the cold, not left in the dark because of the conflict in the Middle East as well?
Of course, absolutely. I mean, we have ensured some good agreements in the Middle East, but you know, Europe remains our key partner, and as I mentioned, Germany is on top of that list, and I'm sure there would be additional meetings. We know that there will be meetings of President Zelensky in other European capitals, but I think for Germany, it's both the recognition of the role that Germany has played for Ukraine, but also it's an opportunity for German economy, for German defense industry, because, for example, I will bring attention to one specific agreement that was also concluded between the Minister of Defense of Germany, Boris Pistorius, and Ukrainian Minister of Defense, Mr. Fedorov. It's about the data exchange, and it's very important because Ukraine has launched under the Minister of Defense this AI, learning center, which actually kind of collects the data from the front lines, and Germany, for example, can then benefit from that data. It's also very important, so that it is two-sided street. It's not only about supporting to Ukraine, but also what Ukraine can offer to Germany. And you know, the experience of our drone operators, our drone interceptors, and also the data that I mentioned. These are all important aspects for Germany and their defense industry.
That AI and data integration you mentioned, what would that look like in practice? I mean, on the battlefield, even potentially, you know, could that inform NATO exercises and NATO's ability to defend itself?
Well, theoretically, absolutely. We have seen already how, Ukrainian teams playing on the red side, on the opponent side in several NATO exercises has had impact. And I mean, it underlines some of the critical gaps in NATO's defense and the way that NATO perceives actually, we have seen this with the exercise in Estonia, in Portugal, and there could be more of these things happening. And there is quite famous in the circles of defense-related experts, the Delta system. The Delta, it's a battlefield management system through which Ukraine receives up-to-date information about what is happening, and it has been used in these exercises, and it can be further shared with the partners. So there are a lot of avenues for potential cooperation where Ukraine can be beneficial to our partners.
Some of this cash, about 300 million euros, is heading towards scaling up the production of Ukrainian long-range weapons. Of course, that will allow Ukraine to strike further and more precisely deeper into Russian territory. Talk me through what Ukraine's aim is when it comes to, I guess, targeting and using these kinds of weapons. Is it trying to obviously destroy Russia's oil and military production? Is it trying to put the pressure on so that Russia does come to the table for peace talks?
Well, this goes in two directions. First of all, of course, I mean, we call it Ukraine's sanctions against Russia because, as we know, not all the sanctions are as efficient as Ukraine's strike on this oil production side. And we want to, of course, cut Russian revenues from the oil exports. And this is important to decrease the number of, the amount of money they can fuel in their war machine. But at the same time, this is also the pressure tool, of course, on Russia to negotiate, because for Russia, it's about the strategic calculus. If Russia believes it's winning, then they do not want to engage in any negotiation. And if they see that the pressure on them is mounting, and hopefully it will be mounting from the European side now as well, with the turn in the Hungarian election. So, perhaps Russia would be more willing to sit at the negotiation table and actually make some compromise, because so far they have been just demanding things from Ukrainian side and not willing to compromise on anything.
You mentioned Peter Magyar's win in Hungary earlier. That's drawn celebrations, of course, from many across Europe. But in your mind, is it all good news for Ukraine? I mean, is there going to be a completely different approach from Budapest when it comes to Kyiv? Because Peter Magyar is still talking about having pragmatic relations with Russia.
Well, of course, we are very cautiously optimistic, I would say, and we are very much aware of the fact that Peter Magyar will not turn into a huge friend of Ukraine and huge supporter of Ukraine. We are very conscious about that because, for us, it is very important that Hungary has elected the government that will be pro-European and pro-transatlantic, as I can say so, because if Hungary continues to be a good partner for Europe, or becomes a good partner for Europe, because I would say that Hungary under Orban's leadership was not a reliable partner for Europe, then it would be already a big step for Ukraine, because if Hungary actually implements what they have committed to in December with the loan for Ukraine, it would be already a big step forward. And I really hope, even in his comments, Peter Magyar, he mentioned that, he does not have intention, he will not do anything on Hungarian side to support this deal, but he will also not object this deal, so it can actually start being implemented. And I also hope that he will actually support the next sanctions package from the EU, because it has been already developed, but it was not adopted because Orban, together with Fico, with Slovakia's Prime Minister, were blocking it. So I hope that if Hungarian veto is basically not there anymore, that Slovakia will also not block it by itself. So, I mean, we are not hoping that everything will change, but I hope that it will open new kind of dynamic for Hungarian-Ukrainian relations. Yes, we are conscious again that probably Hungary will still continue to buy oil from Russia, oil and gas, but we also saw and heard some signals that they are planning to diversify their energy resources. I think that what we have seen in the elections, all these investigations about close ties of Orban's government to Russia, the population in Hungary is clearly against it. They do not want such a cooperation with Russia. They do not want such a close, role that Hungary has been playing. So I think that Hungarian government, the new government, will try to diversify from Russia, but it will take some time. So we are also understanding that this will be happening not immediately.
When it comes to the Ukrainian side in the Hungarian-Ukrainian relationship, what can Kyiv do more of, or perhaps start doing, to improve that relationship? Because we've talked a lot, and many people are talking about the fact that Hungary can lift its veto and lift its block and start to be a little more cohesive in its relationship with Ukraine. But what can Ukraine do on the flip side?
Well, first of all, I mean, Ukrainian president has already mentioned that the works are ongoing to restart the Druzhba pipeline, and he mentioned that, of course, it will not restart at the full capacity after it was damaged by the Russian strike on it. But there are some expectations that by the end of the month, or maybe the beginning of next month, it will start being operational again. So it's the first thing. I mean, Viktor Orban has been demanding it for quite some time, but I'm sure that this would be something on the agenda of the new prime minister as well. And second of all, I mean, I hope that actually the trustful relationship can restart, because Ukraine did not manage to have really good dialogue with the Hungarian counterparts for quite some time. So I really hope, because there were only accusations coming in most of the time, and it was very unproductive during this pre-election times. So I really hope that we could re-establish, on the levels of first ministers and then maybe president and prime minister of Hungary, there could be meeting where some issues can be discussed, because a lot of what Hungary was putting on the agenda was just manipulations, because they've been talking a lot about protection of Hungarian minorities, but it was not actually the issue on the ground. So it was all exaggerated and manipulated to present Ukraine as a bad state.
Iryna Krasnoshtan, Program Director at the International Centre for Ukrainian Victory, thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
And that's all for this edition of World Talks. Do stay with us here on TVP World. I'm Dahmen. Goodbye for now.